Chapter 8. Ichiro brought home newspapers every day. He made Sumiko wait until he was finished with every word before she could touch the papers. She tried to read from the back, but if he caught her, he made her stop because he said it annoyed him. In the evenings, the family listened to the radio together. It was strange to hear governors and other important people talking about her as if she was dangerous. One of the strangest things she heard was when one American general said of the Nikki, "The very fact that no sabotage has taken place to date is a disturbing and confirming indication that such action will be taken." Sumiko would sit at her window at night and think about the puzzle of those words. The very fact that no sabotage has taken place to date is a disturbing and confirming indication that such action will be taken. She'd memorized that line. As far as she could tell, what the general was saying was that since not a single instance of Nikki sabotage had occurred, that confirmed such sabotage would take place in the future. So if the Japanese behaved themselves perfectly well and didn't break any laws, their good behavior could be taken as evidence of bad intentions. But she also knew that if they did break laws, that their bad behavior would also be taken as evidence of bad intentions. Either way, they were doomed. In February, anyone of Japanese ancestry was restricted to a nighttime curfew until 6 a.m. Ichiro broke curfew every day to travel to the flower market. One night, Sumiko got up to talk to him before he left. He was eating the breakfast she'd prepared for him the night before. "Ichiro? Why aren't you in bed?" he said tiredly. "I wanted to ask you something." She felt wide awake. "What if some soldiers stop you?" "They stop me almost every day." "They do? What do they say?" "They ask me what I'm doing, and I show them the flowers in the truck, and they let me go. Get to bed now. Don't you have to work on the carnations tomorrow?" "Yes," she said. "Get your rest then." Back in bed, she thought about how much she liked the flower mart. Someday, when she owned her shop, she would go to the market to pick out the best flowers. She imagined being on the outside of the market instead of on the inside. The most exciting moments of the morning at the market were when the opening bell rang, the accordion gate opened, and the customers rushed in like a wave. She liked to imagine riding that wave right into the flowers. By the end of February, more than 2,000 Nikki had been arrested without being charged with a crime. Many elders, as well as anyone who was a leader in the community, had been arrested. Uncle had once been president of a Nikki Flower Growers Association. Plus, he was born in Japan. Ichiro had heard that the FBI had been keeping files on Nikki leaders for years. Auntie got a letter from Uncle saying that he and Jishan were in a prison camp in North Dakota. He warned Auntie to cooperate with authorities. Some of his letter was blacked out by censors. Sumiko took the letter outside and held it up to the sun to see if she could read beneath the black marks, but she couldn't read a thing. Maybe the blacked out parts were about the weather. Jishan hated the cold. She worried he'd get sick. Then, suddenly, Nikki residents of the fishing community on Terminal Island were told by the government that they had 48 hours to evacuate the island, bringing only what they could carry. Many fishermen had been arrested as potential spies, and the wives who remained spoke little English. Some Japanese, even those without much money, owned beautiful wood furniture. From her cousin, Auntie heard stories about swarms of people who had descended on the island and bought up all the beautiful furniture for a fraction of its worth. Every new law and development sent the community into an uproar, but the weird thing was that throughout all the furor, Sumiko's daily life hardly changed. She dispotted flowers, she graded and bunched them, she heated the bathwater, and she never went to school. In March, people of Japanese ancestry were given 1 week to evacuate Bainbridge Island near Seattle. Unlike the evacuees from Terminal Island, those from Bainbridge Island were to be taken to reception centers. Ichiro said reception centers meant big jails. The evacuees could bring only what they could carry and needed to dispose of all of their personal effects beforehand. As at Terminal Island, people swarmed over the neighborhood to buy up household goods and property for a cheap price. Sumiko went outside many nights and knelt among her peach kusabana. She filled her lungs with the smell of cloves and dirt. Amid all that was going on, she managed to feel calm out there among her flowers. A few weeks later, Ichiro called a family meeting after dinner. They sat in the living room, waiting for him to speak. Finally, he said, "I've decided we need to think about abandoning the farm and getting out of California." Auntie laid her palm on her chest. "The Miyamotos tried to leave for Nevada. Some men with rifles met them and turned them back." "How would we make a living in another state?" Bull said. "Should we just leave behind the flowers?" Nobody asked Sumiko's opinion, but she gave it anyway. "I want to stay on my farm," she said. "Where would we go?" Bull said doubtfully. "And what if they decide not to evacuate us after all?" "The governor of Colorado spoke out in defense of us. I thought we could go there." Bull frowned. "Here we can support ourselves, and—" He frowned even more deeply. "And the flowers, how can we leave them?" "We can't leave the flowers," Sumiko said. "Who will take care of them?" "What does it matter?" Ichiro said. "But it does matter." She tried to think why. "It matters because the flowers they're everything. Everything we do depends on the flowers." Auntie said, "We should stay here, where we're with other Japanese." Ichiro said, "All of you think about it, and we'll have another meeting tomorrow." But the meeting never happened. For the next day, the decision was made for them, when the government announced that Nikki were prohibited from voluntary evacuation of the West Coast. They were, basically, under arrest. They could not leave the area.